I'm Kurt Benkert, and this is Pocket Presence, powered by Sleeper. Football season is back. NFL preseason is over, and that means real football is right around the corner, Tyler. We're back with another episode of Pocket Presence. We had a lot to talk about, and we're going to have a whole lot to talk about the rest of this season.
Oh my gosh, we're like headed into a game week. You can almost feel the excitement building, the anticipation building. Like the real football will be happening at the end of next week, which is, I mean, it always feels like it takes forever to get here, but we're here.
Yeah, we're here. And I think, look, we get a little hold me over with college football coming up on Thursday. We had a little college football last week. I'm ready to get to like my version of prepping for game week, which is a lot different than it used to be when I was playing. But I think we'd be remiss to get into that a little too soon. And I think we should talk about cuts. NFL cuts are happening by today, I think 4 p.m. Eastern. All of these teams have to get the rosters trimmed down to 53 people. And then they'll have the next 24 hours after that to figure out who they want to establish on their practice squads, sign some people here, do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Guys will be shuffling around, moving around, but there'll be a lot of guys without jobs in the NFL over the next 24 hours. And I don't think fans really realize how difficult it is to be in this spot. They see the NFL, they see guys in the NFL, and they think they make all this money. When in reality, that's just a handful of the guys on a team. A lot of the other guys that are a part of this operation don't really get paid a whole lot of money from March all the way through until September. You're making less than like a typical career would make after you get a college degree, and you're putting all your eggs in one basket that come September, you're going to have a job in the NFL. And if you do not get a job come September, you will have essentially wasted from March through September prepping for something that no longer exists. There's a lot of guys in those shoes right now. So as fans see the cuts, see this and that, I want to just talk about like the reality of what is the NFL for a lot of these guys.
Yeah. What was it like? We're recording here on a Tuesday, and you mentioned by the end of the day, the rosters will be whittled down. I'm sure waking up on a day like today is one of the most stressful feelings. So how would you spend a day where you knew, hey, I could not have a team to play on by the end of the day? Like, what were you doing to keep your mind off it or pass the time?
Yeah, honestly, it was near impossible. And like the way that I'm wired, like I just need to know the answer one way or the other. Like it got to the point where I did not necessarily care if I was cut or signed. I just wanted to know the answer, because then you can start making the steps after that, right? Like every time that I was cut in preseason, I always was brought back to that same team. The only time that I was not anywhere was when I wasn't somewhere for preseason. I went to the 49ers in like week 2 or 3. But every preseason that I played in, I was a part of that team on practice squad or bumped or elevated or whatever at some point in the year right following. So I luckily never had to worry about going in, getting cut, going somewhere else. Like I was with that team from start to finish, which was great. But that's not the reality for a lot of guys. And I also think it changes position to position. Like you see Malik Willis, he just got traded to the Packers. And what does that mean for the Packers? Well, now they have a few quarterbacks that are they going to only keep Malik Willis? Are they going to cut Clifford and Pratt? Like, what's the deal? We don't really know. Both those guys didn't really play the best in preseason. It's also really hard to know like just how well somebody played, because you don't really get to judge him based on what quarterbacks in regular season are judged on. How do they go through when they have a game plan and the team is prepping to beat the other team? Like, right now, they're just being judged on like raw capabilities, and they're not really being catered to as quarterbacks. So that's just one nuance of the position. But preseason is weird, man. And I saw a graph about how many dropbacks starting quarterbacks actually got throughout preseason. A lot of them were 0. I saw some of them between 2 and 5 dropbacks. And then the rest of the league that had bad teams or really young quarterbacks, they played a lot in preseason. But the preseason isn't really a place to judge players as much as fans might think.
Yeah, or at least not from the fan perspective. Like that's really the only time we get to see these guys play. And obviously the coaches get to see them every day in practice. So there's a bit of an information gap there where the fans are like, this guy sucks, this guy rocks. And you're like, you have seen the top 1% of the iceberg.
Yeah. You've really seen nothing. And I think if you look at the Atlanta Falcons, look at what they did with Michael Penix Jr. this preseason. He played in one game, I believe, but he's been playing a lot in practice. And a lot of times in the NFL, you'll have 1s versus 1s early in training camp. And then as you get towards the end of training camp, it'll be 2s versus 1s, 1s versus 2s. And you start working out what does like a game prep look like. And you'll start collaborating where, hey, defensive. Like if we have a rack of 12 plays, well, 4 of these plays are going to be versus this coverage. You want to see what this looks like. 4 of these are versus this. Like they kind of start basically mocking what they actually want to see, plays matching up versus other things. Where early in training camp, they're calling their plays, they're seeing what it is. And that's a lot of times why you see defenses ahead of the curve early in training camp and preseason, because that's just kind of how it goes, where offenses have the advantage once they start prepping and start attacking coverages that they know are going to come up a percentage of the time. There's just more game planning that goes into it. So the team like the Falcons did not play Kirk Cousins at all, did not play Michael Penix Jr., to essentially say, hey, we don't give a shit about preseason. We just lost our last game 0-30 or whatever it was. Like it does not matter for us. All that team is trying to see is what guys on their roster can beat man coverage, what guys on their roster can play man defense, what guys on their roster can be serviceable on special teams. That's all they're trying to figure out. At the end of the day, they're trying to figure out everything else in practice against their ones and their ones and their twos and their twos. So I just think people put a little bit too much weight on preseason, but some teams put more than others on it as well. So the NFL, as everybody knows, every team is different. Every organization is different. It's not like one standard way of doing things. And that's why every year is a mystery.
When you're getting cut, how do they tell you? Do they give you a phone call? They have the courtesy to bring you in? Yeah, what is it like?
Getting cut in the NFL is the absolute worst, because you're sitting there on cut day, like looking at your phone. And then a lot of times, every time that you get cut, you'll get a phone call from typically the area code that you're playing in. You'll look at it, and I remember it. Like I remember it distinctly every single time. I get the phone call. I look at my wife. Fuck, I got to go in. And I grab my iPad. You answer the phone call. Hey, can you come in? We need you to bring your iPad. That's all they say. And it's just like, just tell me, like, I'm getting cut. I know I'm getting cut. Can we just at least meet in the middle and just say, hey, come on in, we got to cut you, bring your iPad. Like, don't just be like, it's like that standard dumbass procedure that I just tell me you're cutting me. Don't make me do the walk of shame, the drive of shame, walk all the way up to the building, lay the iPad down, take the charger. And the worst part is, like, for that 24 hours before you're re-signed on practice squad, it's like you're not on the team. Like, you're not allowed to go in the building, can't use your code, like, can't work out. It's just like, all right, you're off the team. Then 24 hours later, come on back. Like, let's go sign you to this practice squad. Like, welcome back. We're glad we got to keep you. It's just so awkward. So getting cut in the NFL is no fun. It's a lot less fun when you know you're not coming back, though.
How do you decompress on the way to or from the facility? Are you like listening to music? Are you just sitting in silence? Like, what are you?
I'm listening to Tyler Childers, dude. I'm just jamming out the Tyler Childers, just letting it loose.
Singing at the top of your lungs, just trying to get there as slowly as possible.
House Fire, Tyler Childers.
That's Kurt's cut song. I love that. All right, let's move along to some more holdouts happening. We saw one of them end with CeeDee Lamb getting paid the second highest among any non-quarterback. We still have Trent Williams holding out in Niners camp, and then we have the weird Brandon Aiyuk thing still happening. There's a couple questions I want to ask you about this. First, if it came down to Williams or Aiyuk, we live in a hard salary cap league. Who are you more willing to pay if you're the 49ers?
If I'm the 49ers and it comes down to either paying Williams or Aiyuk, I'm paying Williams every single time. Generational tackles and safety nets for your quarterback and guys that dominate and lock down one side of the line are almost impossible to come by. You cannot just find those guys. Whereas receivers, like, yes, Ayuk's a really good receiver, but you can find receivers every year. There's always guys coming out in the draft. There's always guys coming up in free agencies that are serviceable. Ayuk's been a really good receiver, but he has not had the same impact on that team that Trent Williams had. It's noticeable. When Trent Williams is in the game looks different. When Trent Williams is in the game, teams have to play different. You can almost call a run to the left and know it's going to be more successful than a run to the right. That just is what it is. And Trent Williams brings that Aaron Donald effect to their offense where you just know he's going to handle business. And how do you think that lets a guy like Brock Purdy play so well at a young age? And at the time, with not many reps, he knew that he did not have to worry about his backside at all. Not even in his mind, he is going to be taken care of. That lets him focus all of his extra effort on what's happening to navigate the front side of the pocket, on his right, on his open side. Like, when Trent Williams does not play football, the 49ers don't look like the same team. And I don't know if the 49ers make the playoffs consistently year in and year out without Trent Williams doing what he did. That team looks a lot different without him on the field, and I think they all know that. Not to mention, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't even want to be there. So why would you go and try to beg a guy to? That's like a girlfriend that doesn't want to be with you, that you just won't let her break up with you. Like, go trade him, send him where he wants to go, get your picks for it, use that money to go pay Trent Williams, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, it was sort of a leading question because I saw that you had tweeted that you think Trent Williams is the top player in the NFL, which got me thinking, when we talk about these top 10 lists, and I'm going to have you rank your top 10 players here in a second. Ooh. I think we think skill position guys. We obviously think quarterbacks. Are you still going to put Trent Williams number one if I asked you to rank top 10 players in the NFL right now?
Oh, man. I can't put him number one because I think you have to put somebody like Mahomes at number one. But I think relative, right? Like when you look at relative output at the position, I know that people have Tyreek Hill at the number one spot in the NFL, but Trent Williams, this is what I want to say. If you look at receivers in the NFL, how many guys like Tyreek Hill exist that you could say, this dude's the best receiver in the NFL? You have Justin Jefferson you can make an argument for. You could say CeeDee Lamb's better than Tyreek Hill. You could say maybe Jamar Chase has the opportunity to be better than Tyreek Hill. Some people love Tyreek Hill. It's like kind of this, that, right? When you asked who was the best defensive tackle in football and Aaron Donald was playing, you said Aaron Donald. There was no questions asked. Aaron Donald freed up everything for those D-lines. Now you look at left tackle, who's been the most surefire left tackle in the league for the last 5+ years. It's been Trent Williams. Trent Williams is in a league of his own when it comes to left tackles. There's other really good left tackles in this league, guys that are pass protectors, lockdown guys, whatever. Trent Williams is built different than the best guys in the league in that position. Tyreek Hill is a number one player in the league because he's like their flavor that they like. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about flavor with Trent Williams. He's just that guy. And then you look at quarterback, I could even say the same. Like, people are going to say Pat Mahomes because he won all the Super Bowls. But some people might really think Lamar Jackson is like the best. Or some people might say if Josh Allen was with the Chiefs, Josh Allen might have a few Super Bowls. Like, so you can kind of make different arguments. You can't really do that. Like, you cannot do that with left tackles. And the only other position that I think there's a guy that's in his own category is Christian McCaffrey. And even then, you're still kind of like, I don't know, man, like maybe Bijan's going to pop off there. Maybe Breece Hall. Like, I look around the league and I look at DNs. There's flavors of DNs that people like. There's no other flavor of left tackle. Trent Williams is the like unicorn gold standard to be as big as he is, as strong as he is, move how he does, understand the game, be as like quick-feeted as he is. Trent Williams is built in a lab at that position. So I just think that if you're just talking about football player, not skill position, not whatever, Trent Williams might be the best player on every team if you look at it that way.
Okay.
If you put Trent Williams on the Chiefs right now, Trent Williams might be the best player on their team. Pat Mahomes is amazing. If you put, Trent Williams on the 49ers, people say Trent Williams is their best player, and Christian McCaffrey's number 3 on this top 100 list. So if you have the only 49ers players in their locker room saying that Trent Williams is the best player on their team, what does that say? Right? Like, everyone knows. And I just think the media doesn't necessarily look at O-linemen in the same capacity that real football players do. And I don't know, man. I've seen Kyle Shanahan make a game plan to stop Aaron Donald where there's 5 play calls in one play. Right? Like, that's wild. Aaron Donald had that effect. On the other side of that, you're not going to get past Trent Williams. Defenses have to adjust their blitzes, adjust what they're doing because of Trent Williams' presence on that left side. That's a damn good football player, and he's one of the best in the league.
So it seems like you just talked yourself back into him being the number one player.
I kind of did.
Make it top 10 list.
Like when you walk down that line, I'm like, dude, I'm looking at this top 10 list, and I'm like, he's number 7 on this top 10 list. I'm looking at Trent Williams or Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a dog, but Trent Williams is a better football player, in my opinion. Chris Jones is a damn good football player, but I think Trent Williams impacts more than he does. If you take away Chris Jones, do the Chiefs still win a Super Bowl? I think they do. Like, I think it's going to be tough, but I still think they have a chance. If you take away Trent Williams from that 49ers team, I don't know. It doesn't look good. I'll tell you that. Like, that offensive line is shaky at best. Brock Purdy was under pressure all preseason long, and they weren't even playing ones. So if Trent Williams is not suited up, or if Trent Williams has a high ankle sprain like he did last year for a couple weeks, it's not going to be pretty. And I look at Myles Garrett at number 5. I think Trent Williams is probably more important to their football team than Myles Garrett is to the Cleveland Browns. If you put Trent Williams on the Browns, I think Trent Williams is their best player. If you put, then you have Patrick Mahomes is that one guy that I'm like, I look at him play and I'm like, he's not athletically the best player on the team, but he's a really special football player. I also think that if Pat Mahomes didn't play for Andy Reid, I don't think it would be as pretty. I think he'd be a top 10 guy, but that pairing right now is amazing. Christian McCaffrey today would not be running the way that he does if he did not have Trent Williams. He would not be a number 3 player in the league. He'd still be one of the best football players, probably top 10, top 15, top 20. Christian McCaffrey is number 3 on this top 100 list because Trent Williams paves the way. And he would say the same thing. So I don't know. I think we got to start listening to the players more in what they talk about with these players, because you look at Trent Williams and what players say about him around the league. I mean, they look at him like he's probably the best football player that they played against. And just watch his film, dude. He moves different.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you could also make the argument that he plays, I don't know how you see left tackles, one of the top 3 most important positions in the NFL, maybe top 2, only behind quarterback. I mean, how do you see that, the left tackle position, in terms of its importance?
I mean, look at Joe Alt, right? Like, are they using Joe Alt at left tackle? I think they are. We'll find out. But why did the Chargers take Joe Alt so high? Right? They saw that position as a position that needed to be locked down. And at the end of the day, what defenders are wrecking games right now? DNs, the Max Crosbys, the Myles Garretts. Like, how do you stop that? You have a dog-ass left tackle that can pass pro and also pave the way in the run game. Not everybody has a left tackle that can do both. Like, that is a unique, hard build. To be fast enough to block the edge on a pass pro against the ends are probably the most athletic guys on the field, in my opinion, at their size and the way that they can bend and move and turn the corner. To be athletic enough at 330 to move and stop those guys while also being strong enough to move the pile forward, it's such a unique blend of talent that I think is just really hard. There's not a lot of guys that you look at in the NFL that are like, that's a dog left tackle. They're not. So it's just, those guys are unicorns. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that question. Give our left tackles in the league some love, man.
No, I love that. And this 49ers situation now gets really, really tricky. You have Aiyuk already holding out, but maybe staying. You heard Debo say that he's going to be around at the start of the season, but now Trent Williams is not going to return until his contract situation is resolved. So the 49ers looked like they had it all in front of them, and then all of a sudden they have a couple holdouts, and you don't know how good they're going to be if this cast of characters can't come back for the season.
You know, you also have to talk about windows of this roster. Like, this is probably the last year for the 49ers to take advantage of this window. Doesn't mean that windows can't be extended, but this version of the team, this is the last year. You have Kittle that's getting older, McCaffrey's getting older, Trent Williams getting older. Like, all these guys are getting older. All of them are needing to get paid. Brock Purdy's going to have to get paid. Let's talk about that. Brock Purdy still has not gotten paid. At the end of the day, this window is about to change, just like the Chiefs did. The Chiefs' window of winning the Super Bowl this past year was in a different window than when they had Tyreek Hill winning Super Bowls. They had to adjust. Their team looked different. They weren't the explosive offense. They were the defense. They had the defense to do it, and the offense that was just good enough. Like, the Chiefs weren't lighting the world on fire on offense last year, but they were in critical situations. They were taking care of business because of Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. But the window is different, and the 49ers window is about to change. So it's just facts. It is what it is. And these other teams around the league are getting better. You're not just walking into a young Packers team that doesn't know what they're doing. They're going to be better. You have the Lions who are also consistent. You have the Bears now who look really damn good. I know everybody's ripping on me for loving the Bears. This Bears team is going to be different than it has been in past years. I've never once jumped on the Bears bandwagon from their preseason hype. This is not preseason hype. This Bears team is a good football team this year. Just turn on the tape. They look different. So all that to say, the NFC is not as easy as it used to be. And it's only going to get harder for the 49ers. And the 49ers are only getting worse on this back end of the climb.
Sure. Speaking of other NFC teams that might have cause for concern, I want to read you this quote that Warren Sharp tweeted out. You had a response to it on Twitter, but I just want your explanation on it. I think you'll have some good insight here. So I'll read the quote first. Warren Sharp tweets, "The word is out. If you run zero blitz against Hurts or show zero and back everyone out, he will panic." And this is according to a defensive coach in the league. That has to change. They lose Jason Kelsey, who handled the protections, basically did everything. You bring in a coordinator who likes to drop back. It'll be interesting. What do you make of this in terms of its cause for concern for Jalen Hurts? How do other quarterbacks handle these situations? I just want you to explain it to us like we're five, probably.
Okay, so first thing, I think a defensive coordinator saying that is bullshit. And that defensive coordinator knows just as well as anybody else in the league that the zero blitz plan starts with the OC. So putting it on the quarterback, it really pisses me off. Because Jalen Hurts, with everything considered, is still a young quarterback in this league. He's only played for a few years. He has never been equipped with the tools to handle zero blitz. Look at Jordan Love. Jordan Love, in his first year playing, did not have zero blitz answers. Matt LaFleur came out on the podium after the game and said, "I did not equip him with the tools to beat zero blitz and beat the pressure in the capacity that they were bringing it. That's on me." He took accountability for that. You cannot blame a quarterback for not having zero blitz answers when it's the offensive coordinator's job to have the fucking answers. That's my problem. So now he has a coach in Kellen Moore who likes to drop back. All that you have to do is for whatever play call is called. And Matt Ryan, and this is one thing Matt Ryan did so well. Matt Ryan prepped so well every single week. And he had his checklist of things that he went down every single week. And at the end of every plan, once it was all in, okay, which plays have the zero blitz problems? And what will our answers be? He went through every single play in the game plan, every single one, but it was a collaborative effort with the quarterback coach and the OC. The fact that Jalen Hurts doesn't have those answers, one, he's probably never been showed to have those answers, and two, he has nobody leading the way. Matt Ryan played in the league for 10 plus years, and he had coaches that did that for him early in his year. So if you as a young player don't know that you even need zero blitz answers or don't even know what that process looks like, what is that? At the end of the day, it's on the coaches to make sure that the players are prepared. Players have enough to worry about. A lot of times in the NFL, like the older you get, the more you take that into your own control. You add your own flavor to it. Aaron Rodgers had his blitz answers. Jordan Love now has his zero blitz answers. Jordan Love in the last half of last season was dialing it up against zero blitz. He saw it. He'd cut things. All right, bring the tight end in. We're going to shore up the protection. Full slide left, running back, play action, cross fake, little token fake. He's going to seal up next to the tight end. We're going to create a wall, and then we're going to create things that have deep crossers over the top that I can lose ground, buy time, and throw it deep. We're going to make them pay for zero blitz. They didn't have that, dude. They were relying on Jalen Hurts to throw 10-yard stop routes, 10-yard out routes. Like, his answers were not good. You're running into what the defense is hoping you're going to do. The number one thing that defenses hope you don't do versus zero blitz is take a shot over the top with 7-man protection. They're praying you don't do that. And I promise you, Kellen Moore has been around enough to know that that's what they're going to be doing this year, and he needs to give him answers for zero blitz. And look, it's one thing to get got on offense when I didn't know they were blitzing. I didn't know they were bringing zero blitz, whatever. Like, they got us. That will happen. But I promise you he'll be equipped this year with more answers, and there will be a better way of doing it. Philadelphia's coaching staff last year was one of the most abysmal operations I've ever seen. They were not prepared on offense. They were not prepared on defense. They had a great roster, and it looked like they were clueless out there. Like, you cannot blame this on the players. That one was so blatant. The coaches were so bad that I'm glad they cleaned house. And now if it looks like that this year, it's going to come from even a little bit more on the top down, because that's then his fault. So that's my soapbox on calling out quarterbacks for not being ready for zero blitz. That's just a cop-out.
I appreciate that. Do you think there's a moment where, and maybe this is like a percentage blame situation, like is there a time where it becomes more on Jalen and less on the coaching staff? Is that something you're looking at this year where it's like, okay, if he can't figure it out with Kellen Moore, then maybe the question's about Jalen, not the coaching staff?
I think that what you'll know is, okay, if they start getting zero blitzed and it's clear and he goes to the line of scrimmage and checks things, then probably going to be prepared from his coach. If he's not checking things, but he sees it clearly, that means that he doesn't have the answers. And so, like, you can tell a lot from the quarterback's pre-snap operation what it's going to look like. And I think that this year you'll see more shifts and motions. Like, that Eagles offense last year was so college and so vanilla, it made no sense to me. They acted like they were just going to line up and beat people because they had better players. There's a reason coaches get paid to scheme shit up. And the Eagles did zero scheming last year. They looked terrible. Like, you knew what was coming at the moment that they snapped it. Okay, they were showing pressure. We're going to block it up and we're going to run a 10-yard out route. Hope our guy wins on one-on-one. Like, they were not putting any pressure on teams when, if you're blitzing, you need to know where you're weak, and offenses typically, the good ones, know where they're weak, so they're taking advantage of it. There was no reason not to blitz the Eagles last year. So let's just hope that the Eagles have reasons for their fans to be happy and to attack blitz when they see it.
Sure. Another thing you caught a bit of flack for on Twitter this week was your Anthony Richardson hate. I actually, Kurt, had people text me and be like, you got to get your boy in line because this Anthony Richardson hate is off the handle.
There's no hate. It's not even hate. That's okay, what's hate. Like the crazy part. But so people look at it as hate.
Right.
Like, listen, dude, I'm just watching film. I'm literally watching football games. If I see something in film, I don't care if it's good or bad. I'm just going to say it. That is one thing you can expect from me, from my channels, from my Twitter, whatever. Like, I'm just going to call it as I see it. If Anthony Richardson misses and airmails 2 wide open inside posts that would go for 20 to 25 yards a pop on third downs in preseason against the third team, that's a problem. Meanwhile, you have rookie Drake Maye, who I've also been critical of, hit the same exact throw that Anthony Richardson missed twice. Drake Maye hit it twice, and I was praising him for hitting those. I was praising him for how he looked. He played well in this last preseason game. He looked like a good football player. I don't care what my preconceived or old notions of people are or what I thought about them. As things change throughout the season, I'm just going to be calling it as I see it in that moment. Anthony Richardson may come out and he might hit those same passes that he missed. I will let you know that he's made improvement. However, what I am out on is that people are basically calling him the second coming of Lamar Jackson in fantasy football. You will not do that if you're missing wide open posts on third downs because they will kill you. That will kill drives. You cannot miss throws in the NFL on layups. Like, he had a perfect pocket. He had everything laid out perfectly. They weren't matching the coverage. Like, there was no contact. It was just literally you could close your eyes, routes on air as if nobody else is on the field but you and your receiver, and he missed it 2 times in a row. That tells me that maybe he's not comfortable. And this is the other thing. You have a strong arm guy. People don't talk about this enough, and this might be its own clip in its own. Anthony Richardson is really good at throwing routes that are going north and south. He is not great at throwing routes that are coming in east and west. Why is that? Because he's a strong arm guy. He throws it as hard as he can all the time. When you are throwing a seam route that's going vertical, the opportunity to miss that ball is not so much as when you're throwing in breakers. When someone's breaking in, you can throw it in front of them, behind them, whatever. But if someone's running vertical, you can almost throw it as hard as you want and meet him to the spot. The trajectory is not going to be that much different. You don't have to anticipate things crossing. And I think that is why he looks better on some throws than the other. I think that what he really needs is his quarterback coach to tell him something that sunk in for me when I was younger. Hey, an inside post is often caught at this landmark most of the time. If you take your 3-step drop and a hitch, you can almost close your eyes and know that 80% of the time, this is where the ball is going to end up. He's looking at the receiver and trying to place the ball on throws that he cannot throw as hard as he can, and it's messing him up. Same thing this was like the light bulb that went off for me when I was a kid, when I was a younger player. A deep in route that's 20 yards, if you drop back and take a 7-step drop with a hitch, that ball will be caught at the 20 yards past the line of scrimmage on the front side hash 90% of the time. And I used to try to place it. Where's this receiver breaking? How fast is he running? This and that, whatever. Where I started just kind of dropping back, closing my eyes in essence, and just throwing to that same spot. And I was like, holy shit. Like, most of the time, guys are right there and it's in stride. Some guys are a little faster, some a little slower, but that's on them for the most part to like tweak that. But I just don't think he understands the spots that these routes end up in, where he's just trying to throw it to guys that are open and trying to gauge where they're going to end up. So I think he needs some reference points for where these balls end up in a West Coast scheme. And that's a long-winded answer, but it's just he's making it too hard on himself, and I don't know why it's not clicking.
Yeah, I think where you drew a lot of ire from my point of view was at the same time you were gassing up Bo Nix, and there seems to be this like people started pitting them against each other. It was like, if you like Bo Nix, you can't like Anthony Richardson. If you like Drake Maye. So maybe talk a bit about what you liked about Bo Nix. And I thought you gave a great answer about Anthony Richardson, but the Bo Nix stuff, Anthony Richardson stuff, separate, right? It wasn't like
everything is separate. Like I'm never, the only time I'm comparing guys ever against each other is during the draft process, because we're comparing where they will go in the draft and who should be taken higher. At this point in time, it's Anthony Richardson versus Anthony Richardson. There's no comparison. If he plays well, I'm going to talk about why he played well. If he plays like ass, I'm going to say why he played like ass and what he needs to improve on, so that fans can watch the next game and then be like, oh, wait, he actually hit that deep crosser a little bit more in stride. He's a little bit more in rhythm. His front foot was facing the right direction. Like, I will talk about those things. Now with Bo Nix looked incredible all preseason. Made a few errant throws. Every quarterback in the league throws interceptions. Every quarterback in the league has errant throws. That's not what I'm talking about. Bo Nix was able to be efficient, accurate, on time. He got the ball out early. He gave Sean Payton so much confidence. One, to name him QB1, but two, to operate the offense and how he wants it to operate. Russell Wilson never gave Sean Payton enough confidence that he would cork it loose, trust the offense, trust his timing, trust the accuracy to even call the offense how he wanted to. And I'm realizing that now. I also think that Bo Nix has this escapability and extra like kind of creativity as a passer that he brings to the table, that he's going to make some crazy ass plays this year that we don't even know are about to happen. And he did that in college, and it will translate to the NFL. But Bo Nix is like a sleeper quarterback for me this year, man. He looks the part. You would not know that he was a rookie quarterback as of last year. And everyone's always like, oh man, he played 60 games in college. That's what should happen. I don't give a shit. In the NFL, you either perform or you don't. If you don't perform, you're out. Look at Trey Lance. Nobody's giving him time to play his 60 games and to figure out if he can learn enough. It is a benefit to draft quarterbacks like Michael Penix and Bo Nix that have the reps in college, that they've alleviated a lot of the bullshit that you have to learn when you're playing. Like, you're only going to learn by reps. You're going to learn by live situations. He's gotten a lot of that rust off since he was a freshman, sophomore, junior in college. You're getting a very polished version of Bo Nix that can go lead your organization right now with a good defense and a decent scheme. So I like what I saw out of Bo Nix. I think he is the type of guy that, like, same thing, say system guy. If you put him in a Shanahan system, Bo Nix would be a stud. I think Bo Nix is going to be a stud in this Sean Payton system. He's got a tall task to play against that Raiders defense twice a year and the Chiefs defense twice a year, and that's a tough division. You got to play Patrick Mahomes twice. Like, you got to find a way to come out of it, right? But I like what I saw out of Bo Nix with how young it is, and I know that the biggest benefit for him is that he's learning the system and they're scaling down the system to meet him where he is, versus sometimes you go into the league as a backup behind a vet and you're having to learn the system at the level that they are, and things start getting like kind of tough to digest. So it looks like they have a good blend. He looks confident, looks like he knows what he's doing. He looks prepared. That's going to translate into a fun year for the Broncos.
The last rookie quarterback I want to ask you about, Drake Maye, is someone who you have not been a huge fan of. You weren't a huge fan of coming out of the draft, and not that you disliked him, but he was ranked lower by you than some other draft experts. It seems like you might have changed your mind about him, or you're trending in a more positive direction with Drake Maye. Give me your thoughts on him right now.
Yeah, my thoughts on Drake Maye are, look, I don't think he's as polished as he needs to be to go win football games right now. And this is what I'm worried about. Drake Maye, in my opinion, should have been a late first-round draft pick because he needed more grooming and he needed a better situation to go allow himself to be who I think he could be under the right circumstances. If he is thrust into this starting quarterback position, which I believe he's going to be, we could very, very well see a Bryce Young track, a Sam Darnold track. Like Bryce Young, if they lose 14 plus games again this year, he will be 4-30 or whatever in his first 2 years in the league, and he will probably be replaced, right? Like the runway for quarterbacks in this league is not good. And I'm trying to be very forward thinking. I'm trying to not think of, oh, new quarterback, this is going to be exciting. Like, it's not going to work out for everybody. And it's not an indictment on who they are as a player. But Drake Maye has the toughest task of any rookie quarterback in this draft class. And I don't think it's going to play out well. It does not mean that he's not a good player. I would have loved to see Drake Maye go to the Rams, sit behind Matt Stafford for a year or two, learn how he plays, and then take and put his own flavor on it because he has big playability. He's creative. He can scramble. He's a big dude. I freaking hate for him that he's being pushed into this in New England when they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. He has almost no one to throw to. Their defense will be okay, but you have to play the Jets twice a year, the Bills twice a year, the Dolphins twice a year. All three of those teams, like, I don't know if you'll win a division game this year. And not to mention, he is a young player that is going to have all of those rookie mistakes happen before he can, like, let it sink in and learn. And, like, he's not going to be perfect, and no one should expect him to be. But his negatives that come out this year that we're going to watch are going to be amplified because of what team he plays or and who he's playing against. And that just sucks. I hate it for him as a player. I'm excited to watch his big plays, but look at Sam Darnold, man. Sam Darnold had some crazy ass plays his rookie year, like freaking nuts. And there were high expectations and this and that. By year 2, he's going to make this jump. Their roster never made the jump, man. Like, that Jets roster back in the day sucked ass. Sam Darnold was set up to fail. And I'm telling you right now, Drake Maye is being set up to fail, and he will not end his career as a New England Patriot because of the way it goes in the cycles in the NFL. And you just look at it across the board. This is the same exact thing that happens year in and year out. Hype, bad season, the runway gets cut shorter. They got to turn it around this year. Like, everyone's gone. If you get 2 bad years of Gerard Mayo as their head coach with 2 bad years of Drake Maye, by year 3, he's not the rookie that everyone's excited about. Everyone's looking to the next shiny thing.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. Like, I don't know why this is like rocket science to people.
Right. He turns into Sam Darnold. I think they were both literally drafted at the 3 spot. And it takes people like us to be like, hey, he was never given a fair shot. Sam Darnold was 4-2 with the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers suck.
They suck. Look at Trey Lance, dude. Like, Trey Lance was gone after a year. The 49ers, something else happened, right? Like I know Trey Lance just had a bad preseason game where he threw 5 picks, but like a lot of them weren't even on him. They're probably just trying to have him sling it out there. Again, coaches don't even game plan, so they're not even trying to get guys open. I watched that film. Like, where were his answers? I don't know. Don't throw the ball, take a sack. But you can't tell me that this is like an ideal situation for him. Drake Maye should have went somewhere like Michael Penix did to sit behind a stud, right? Like, that's Drake Maye was way less ready to play in year 1 of the NFL than Bo Nix, than Michael Penix Jr., and then maybe even JJ McCarthy. Like, it's a disservice in my opinion. And I also think Drake Maye is not Josh Allen. Like, Drake Maye doesn't have the ferocious running ability that Josh Allen has. Josh Allen's a downhill big runner. Drake Maye is not trying to lower his shoulder on people, and he's not really like similar frame, but they don't play the same football. So let's stop acting like they play the same football, and he's not that. Like, don't ask him to be that guy. And when that guy doesn't show up for you on Sundays, don't give him too hard of a time either, because that's not who he is. So people said the same thing about Justin Herbert and Josh Allen. Like, people, because their builds are the same, like, Josh Allen is different than Justin Herbert. They both throw similar, throw hard, do all that, but Justin Herbert's not a ferocious runner, like downhill QB power. He's not doing that. Like, so stop expecting that from these guys. And it's kind of like everybody expects someone to be the Patrick Mahomes every year. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, dude. Like, Caleb Williams will be his own flair of Caleb Williams, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. So everyone wants a reference for like grading players and talking about players when they're their own people, their own humans, their own experiences, and their own fucked up situations.
I think that's a good perspective. I want to ask you about one more quarterback, and then we're going to end this by getting your predictions for the season before it officially starts. You just seem to be getting in on, I think you're a little feisty this weekend, Kurt, because there was just a lot of confidence. Yeah. We're getting feisty.
We just started talking ball.
Appreciate it. I know. And you're already upset. Passionate.
Oh, yeah.
I'll use passionate.
Passionate.
But there was a Lions. It's one of these like SB Nation pages, the Honolulu Blues.
Oh God,
that says somebody asked a question on Twitter: how many future Hall of Fame QBs are active in the NFL right now? That's a different conversation. But Honolulu Blues Viking or Lions fan says no one has mentioned Jared Goff, but he's legit one season away from being a lock, and it could very well happen this year. You responded saying Jared Goff, Hall of Fame. Since when did the Hall of Fame just get tossed around so easily? So you do not seem convinced.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you think it takes one more above average Jared Goff year for him to be a Hall of Fame lock. So maybe you give us what you think your general criteria is for a quarterback to make the Hall of Fame. We don't have to be mean to Jared Goff because he didn't ask to be put in this conversation of whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. But
Jared didn't ask for this.
No, but what is your idea of the criteria? I think maybe a better example is like an Eli Manning. Like, should he be a Hall of Fame QB with 2 Super Bowls but a 500 record? Like somebody like that.
This is like what happens with Eli Manning. Like Eli Manning is maybe the only stipulation that I'm like a guy like that should make it, and I'm still like Eli Manning had 2 playoff runs that just went his way against a guy that had a lot of things go his way. Eli Manning never played a down against Tom Brady either. Eli Manning played against the Patriots defenses. He was playing in a game against Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like that's in the reality of it. Eli Manning was never at the top of the quarterback list for the season or really even in the playoffs. Like he had some decent runs, but like if Joe Flacco won one more Super Bowl, would Joe Flacco be a Hall of Famer? No. If Foles somehow won another Super Bowl, would Foles be a Hall of Famer? No. Like Super Bowls are a team win. It's not a player achievement. We like to give quarterbacks too much credit at times for those team achievements, but no. Jared Goff has never been at the top of his position in any given year, ever. And in my opinion, the Hall of Fame should be reserved for Hall of Fame. The guys that were the top of the top of the top for an extended period of time, doing it better than anybody else, and it wasn't even close. Like, we cannot just let people into the Hall of Fame that were never the most dominant or the top dominant for a long period of time. Like, this is like, where are these participation trophies coming from? These glorified participation trophies. You lasted long enough. You had enough attempts that led to enough yards. You had just a good enough team to go make some playoff runs to like, we need to stop this shit. That's my opinion. And look at the NFL right now. If you put some of these quarterbacks that people shit on all the time on that Lions roster, they'd look pretty damn good too, right? Like, if you reverted back, kept the same roster, and put Stafford back on that Lions roster, the Lions would probably be my lock for the Super Bowl. Like, we cannot give quarterbacks achievement awards for their team success. I think it's delusional.
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective. I also think our sports media discourse, and I know we try not to feed into this, is so awful where like every guy is a generational talent. And then I think
we got 40 generational quarterbacks in the NFL right now, boys.
It's easy to conflate generational to, okay, if he's generational, then the logical leap would be then he should be a Hall of Famer. And maybe people aren't calling Jared Goff generational, but you look at, we also live in like a total fantasy football brain rot society where Jared Goff was like, QB 6 last year in fantasy football. And so all of a sudden that means he's the 6th best quarterback in the NFL. And
he threw the ball a lot.
Like, those don't equate.
Yeah. And you had the most injuries at quarterback, I think, ever last year. And so like last year's QB rankings and all that stuff were heavily inflated by who's healthy and who's still throwing the ball 40 times a game. Like, we're starting fresh again this year, boys. And maybe we won't have as many injuries. Like,
sure.
How many guys, like Kirk Cousins would have been a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have been a fantasy quarterback, but he would have been an efficiency quarterback. Like, I can't get down with it, dude. I literally, it just drives me nuts. There's ball knowers and there's non-ball knowers out there, and you can tell by what they're saying.
Well, great tease for the QB rankings that will come out starting. Are you going to launch it next week before the season starts, or are we going to go after week 1? We're
going to
before
go
the season starts.
before the season starts,
Okay.
and then we'll have QB rankings every single Tuesday.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting. Okay, let's
here.
wrap up. Yeah, we are. Let's wrap up on this. Before the season starts, I want you to give your predictions for the playoffs. I'll couch this with saying the reason we do this is because it's fun to look back sometimes at how ridiculous these were.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about injuries. Like we could be here at the end of the year and, God forbid a Patrick Mahomes breaks his leg. And it's like, okay, obviously the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl without him. So as it stands right now, I'm going to have you give me the division winner for each conference or each division in both conferences. And then I want your NFC and AFC title game matchups. And then, of course, your Super Bowl matchup and winner. So I'll give you the list and we'll work our way down. We'll start with the NFC East.
Okay, NFC East, I'm going to go with the Eagles.
All right. NFC West.
NFC West, I'm going to go with the 49ers.
Okay, the NFC South and then the NFC North.
NFC South will be the Falcons. NFC North, I think, will be... I think it's going to be the Packers.
Okay. Do you want to give me like a seeding there? And I'll probably ask you for some wild card teams too, so we can round out the playoffs.
I actually think the Falcons are going to end up probably with the number 1 seed. I think they have the easiest schedule, like maybe I think the easiest in the NFL, maybe the second easiest, and I think that they're gonna find their way into a lot of wins this year. Seeding wise, I think that it's going to be Falcons 1, Niners 2, Packers 3, Eagles 4, and then we'll have 3 wildcard teams, correct?
Is it 3 or is it 2?
I think it'll be 3. We should have 7 playoff teams. So my wildcard teams are going to be the Bears, the Lions, and the Cowboys. I think are going to find a wildcard spot. I think maybe let's put the Cowboys in the 6th seed and the Lions in the 7th seed. And then AFC side, I'm going to have the Jets taking the number 1 seed this year. I think that their defense is going to be, again, their defense was top 5 last year. I think top 3, maybe 2. They're all, and that's with an abysmal offense. So the fact that their offense is going to be able to do anything, their defense is going to be a problem this year. And I think that they're just going to start racking up wins. I'm going to put the Chiefs at number 2. I'm going to put the Texans at number 3. And then I'm going to have the Ravens at number 4. And then wild card wise, I'm going to go Bills at 5, Browns at 6, Bengals at 7. I think the Bengals could find a way to their 6, but I'm going to take them there. So now moving on, I think after it all dwindles down, I think we're going to get a Falcons-Jets Super Bowl.
Oh, man.
I'm going to go all the way through the playoffs. I think it's going to be a Falcons-Jets Super Bowl. And part of the reason why I think this is one, the Jets, in my opinion, will have the best defense in the AFC, matched with an offense that is going to be efficient, have big playability, and just basically pair with what they do on defense. I think you're going to see more of a 49ers feel from the Jets than you have in recent years. Now, on the other side of it, though, I think that the Falcons just have things lined up for them to where this is the easiest path possible, as long as Kirk Cousins stays healthy. They have really changed their defense. They have 2 of the top safeties in the league. They have a monster D end. They have a monster D tackle. They have really, really good DBs. And they have an offense that can score at any given time with an OC that's coming from LA, running the same system that McVay runs. That's going to match up well with, again, pairing up what they do on defense. Like, this is, for me, the Falcons, if they can start off hot and not have to like figure things out and knock some rust off early, they'll find their way into the 1 seed off of just having the easier schedule. I think the 49ers, conversely, might stumble a little bit here early out the gate, and that might be why they don't get the number 1 seed. And I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta when football matters. It's only a few games when I was there that it mattered, but that place can get pretty crazy. And I think that there's never been more excitement in that stadium probably than ever before. Maybe that Super Bowl run, but it seems different this year. And I believe they already sold out like season tickets or whatever with the Falcons. Like, I'm actually sipping the Falcons juice this year. I think they have the easiest schedule. And I think that these other teams will be so beat up by the time they get to these meaningful games that the Falcons will have the edge. The NFC South is kind of weak, and a number 1 seed does help a lot. So my gut's just telling me Jets, Falcons. I think both those teams are going to have really good years.
You have to give me the winner then between the Jets and the Falcons, which is like the ultimate cursed Super Bowl. Like that Super Bowl could end with a meteor crashing into the stadium and neither team wins. That's how bad of luck both teams have had.
Dude, something tells me, look, Tom Brady left and Tom Brady got a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers has never had an easy path ever. And he had his Achilles last year. And I think that all things script-wise will play out to where the Jets find their way to winning the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers will hoist the Lombardi, and I think he'll retire right after. Even though he has a few more years on his contract, I think this is going to be the one. He's going to get the Super Bowl. He's going to dip out, and then you might never hear from him ever again, ever. You might never see him again.
It's true. It's true. I just got the Ian O'Connor, Aaron Rodgers biography. I have not yet opened it, but I'm excited to start perusing my way through because, I mean, that man is an enigma, and I'm excited for that book. But regardless, we left a lot on the document here, Kurt. We didn't even talk about the Eagles or the Packers, which is the Friday game. I was so excited for that game that I forget that there is an AFC title rematch happening literally the night before. So next week we're going to be in full swing, and we'll be breaking down both of those games, giving some picks, giving some pick'ems. We got Sleeper Survivor this year, which I'm super excited for. So a ton of great stuff to look forward to.
We got it all, man. I'm excited. And you guys can find the Sleeper Survivor. You can find the Pick'em Pool, all that stuff linked in the description of all these videos to join in before the action gets started. We'll catch you guys next time.